Choices by MesserMoon, Chapter 4. Chapter Summary. Trigger warning, panic attack. This starts soft and fluffy and then gets less so, but it's going to be okay. Well, as okay as James and Regulus can be. He's not sure how it starts exactly. It's an accident, he's almost certain. A coincidence that he finds himself heading up to the astronomy tower almost every night after his friends have gone to sleep. Another coincidence that Regulus is always there. It's strange how quickly he starts to know Regulus, the different ways he smiles without using his mouth, or how he tugs at his fingers when he gets nervous. James doesn't know what it means that he notices these things. He doesn't try to figure that out. Maybe he doesn't want to. You're telling me you've been at this school for 4 years, James is lying on his back, arms thrown behind his head, and you've never stepped foot in the Forbidden Forest? Excuse me for taking the forbidden part of the name seriously, Regulus says, sitting with one knee pulled up, chin resting on top. James snorts. Right little rule follower, aren't you? I just happen to be in possession of something called common sense. You might want to try it. Pfft, James says dismissively. Sounds dead boring. Yes, well, you would think so. James pushes himself onto his elbows so he can look at Regulus properly. He seems different like this. Curled up, shirt untucked. Soft, James's brain supplies. He looks soft. I'll take you, he says finally. Regulus arches his brow. You'll take me where? The forest, obviously. Regulus makes a disapproving noise. I'm not going in there. Aw, come on. James knocks his foot against Regulus's. You'll love it, I promise. Somehow, I doubt that. Listen, if you're scared... I'm not scared, Regulus interrupts sharply, and James does his best not to laugh. I'm not scared, he repeats. I'm smart. There's a difference. If you say so, James knocks his foot again, this time staying there, pressed to Regulus's ankle. But my point was that if you did happen to be scared, James holds up his hands the minute he sees Regulus open his mouth, which you aren't, obviously. But if you were, you should know that you'd have a distinct advantage going in there with me. Regulus snorts. And why's that? Because, James grins, Gryffindors are contractually obligated to sacrifice themselves, so you'll have a decent head start while whatever terrible monster we run into feasts on my flesh. There's a beat of silence before Regulus drops his face into his knees, shoulders shaking with laughter. Making Regulus laugh is new. Good new. Really good new. It feels like scoring a goal in a Quidditch match, like scoring the winning goal. I can't believe you stole a snitch, Regulus says, batting the ball in question away from his face. James smiles, catching it easily in his hand as it starts zooming over the edge of the tower. Really? You can't believe it? Regulus rolls his eyes, but James can tell he's trying not to smile. Besides, he goes on, feeling smug, I'm not stealing, just borrowing. Of course you are. James tosses the snitch up and down a few times before he notices Regulus watching him. The younger boy quickly turning back to his telescope. The Catapults are your favorite Quidditch team? Regulus repeats in shock. They're sitting on the ground, leaning against the castle, James's most recent haul from Honeydukes piled between them. I don't know why you're so surprised, James says, biting off the end of his jelly wand. The Catapults is all Regulus has to say in return. James rolls his eyes. They're badass. The award for riskiest play is named after one of their players. Doesn't get much cooler than that. Because he was eaten by a chimera, Regulus says flatly, not because he did anything particularly impressive on the pitch. Correction, James waves around his half-eaten gummy to emphasize his point. He was eaten by a chimera, and he was impressive on the pitch. Can't ask for a better legacy than that. Regulus stares blankly at him. I can't tell if you're joking right now or if you're genuinely this ridiculous. James grins. Part of my charm, that. He's trying to collect them all? Regulus asks incredulously, passing his chocolate frog card to James. Yeah. That's absurd. James laughs. Yup. He slips the card into the pocket of his hoodie. But you gotta respect his commitment. Regulus arches his brow in a manner that suggests he does not think you actually do have to respect it, but he doesn't say anything. Instead, he turns his head and stares over the grounds, closing his eyes for a moment and breathing in. Bad day? James asks eventually, when the silence drags on too long. Regulus sighs. Maybe. I don't know. James watches him, waiting for him to keep going. He He's learned in these moments that Regulus needs to feel like he's in control. I got a letter from home. James feels himself stiffen. They don't talk about his family. James isn't sure that he wants to, that he can. It's my dad. His voice is clipped, words barely making it out. He struggles to keep going. He's sick. What? Regulus leans back against the pillar behind him, head tilted upward toward the sky. I thought Sirius might have told you. He lets that hang there between them while James tries to collect himself. No. He can hear the hurt in his voice and he hates it. No, he didn't say. Has your dad been sick a while? Regulus nods, not dropping his eyes from the sky. And the healers can't do anything. A dry laugh. James is learning to hate those. They're nothing like his real laugh, which is full and strong. No, blood curse or something. Hereditary. Pure bloods, you know. All that inbreeding. James does know. He has the vague memory of his mom telling him about an aunt who died from something similar. Does that mean a sentence he can't bring himself to finish? Finally, Regulus's eyes come back to him. That Sirius has it? He shrugs. We don't know. Won't. Not till it happens. James feels a little lightheaded for a moment, fingers digging into the stone building underneath him. The pain helps. It keeps him grounded. We figured out how to turn ourselves into anime guy for Remus, he thinks to himself, trying to get his stomach muscles to unclench. We'll figure this out too if we have to. He takes a moment before he realizes that Regulus is watching him, a curious expression on his face. You really care about him, don't you? Yes, James answers without question. And then, not just him, though. Regulus's expression flickers and then quickly goes out. He looks down at his lap, picking some lint off his pants in a poor attempt to appear indifferent. Anyway, he presses on, voice carefully held, guarded. It's hard, hearing from him, when I can't do anything to help. James isn't sure what to say. He realizes suddenly that he doesn't know much about Mr. Black. Most of Sirius's stories center around Walburga, her rules and her bigotry and her sharp magic that liked to slice into him at any chance it got, sometimes lashing out unconsciously, his mother's anger bleeding out of her and leaving him broken. If Sirius spoke out of his father, it was as the shadowy figure in the background who said and did nothing. He works at the ministry, right? James says finally, pulling out the one piece of information he thinks he can remember. He did, but he's gotten worse recently. He can't really use his magic anymore. Too bad. He used to be brilliant. James recognizes that tone, knows that's how he sounds when he talks about his own dad. He tries not to feel angry at Regulus. Really, he does, but he can't get the images of Sirius alone on his doorstep out of his head, or showing up to the Hogwarts Express every year held together by tape and glue. They're nice to you? James finds himself asking. Regulus doesn't seem surprised by the question. I love them. James bites back the automatic response of how and why, because he knows they won't get him anywhere. He knows they'll just shut Regulus down. That's not the same thing, he says finally. Regulus smiles dryly. No, he concedes. But it's the thing that matters. James has started sleeping better, which is ridiculous considering how much less time he's spending in bed. But it helps for some reason, talking to Regulus. There's something steadying about the other boy. Now, when he closes his eyes, the darkness is full of stars. Oi, you lot, hurry up, we're gonna be late. James is walking backward down the hill toward the pitch, desperately trying to corral the majority of the fifth-year Gryffindors. Mary and Sirius are messing about in some strange mating ritual that's halfway between wrestling and dancing, and not moving them any closer to the Quidditch pitch. Marlene and Dorcas are making bets on the match with a group of Hufflepuffs, and Peter is having an adamant argument with Gifford Abbott about whose chocolate is better, Honeyduke's or Cadbury, which for some reason has affected their ability to walk at a reasonable pace. James sighs, running a hand over his face before looking at the lone figure beside him. You're my favorite, Moony. Have I ever told you that? Remus snorts, watching the chaos unfolding behind them with mild amusement. Uh-huh. Wait. James eyes the bag hanging off of Remus's shoulder. Did you bring textbooks with you? Remus clutches the bag like he's worried James is about to rip it away from him, sending his friend a sheepish look. Might have. Yeah. James throws his hands up over his head. Forget it. I take it back. I hate all of you equally. Oh, please, comes Sirius's voice as he starts making his way toward them, Mary now on his back. You love us. I'd love you more if you could get your asses moving, James says as they start walking again, throngs of other students in yellow and green moving with them. Sirius rolls his eyes. I don't know why you're so interested in this game. We all know Hufflepuff's got it in the bag. Is that a bet I hear, Black? Marlene calls from behind them. Sirius laughs. Not a chance, McKinnon. I've learned my lesson. You cleaned me out last time. Hufflepuff does not have it in the bag, James says resolutely. Do you wanna... No, Marlene, he cuts her off. He thinks he hears her mumble cowards, but he can't be sure. Wow, I never would have expected the Marauders to be so cautious with their money, Mary says, dropping her face down and planting a kiss on Sirius's cheek. James shoots a quick glance at Mooney, but he's staring straight ahead, hands wrapped tightly around the strap of his bag. They haven't talked about, well, anything since the library. James has gotten the distinct impression that Remus has been going out of his way to avoid him, which he personally thinks is a bit dramatic. If Remus doesn't want to talk about it, that's fine with James, but that doesn't mean he's going to let his friend suffer. Oi, you two, let's keep it decent, yeah? There are children present. And by children, do you mean yourself? Mary asks, eyebrow raised. Mary, don't be ridiculous. James holds his hand to his chest as though deeply offended. I meant Peter. She laughs, sliding off of Sirius's back. I heard that, Peter calls out. Inside voice, sweetheart, James shouts over his shoulder, causing general laughter to bubble up from the surrounding group. We are literally outside. Don't make me get your father, young man. Mary raises her brow as Peter mumbles a myriad of curses behind them. You're not the father? Pfft, James says. Obviously not. Sirius is the father, clearly. Never gives you his approval, emotionally distant, can't be relied on. Twat, Sirius laughs, punching him in the arm before turning to Mary. He's right, though. I am clearly the father. Remus makes an exasperated noise. The amount of bollocks you two talk is truly astounding. James grins, opening his mouth to speak before Mary beats him to it. I'd have thought Remus would be the mother. Remus groans. Please don't encourage them. They're insufferable enough as it is. See, she says, gesturing to the unimpressed blonde. Both James and Sirius look at her unconvinced. What exactly about dry, acerbic wit screams mother to you? Sirius asks. Yeah, Mooney's really more of an angsty teenager, James agrees. For Christ's sake, Remus mutters beside him, prompting James to swing his arm around his friend, pulling him into a hug. But we love him anyway. Our little Moody Mooney. Sirius uses a baby voice that has James cackling. Remus eventually manages to shove James off, attempting to glare, though his eyes are a bit too bright to make it believable. The truth is, Remus can take a joke better than most people. All right, Mary says finally, squinting at Remus like he's a painting she's trying to work out. I guess I can see your point. Trust me, Sirius pulls Mary in and kisses the top of her head. We've thought about this. James doesn't miss the way Remus looks away. The crowd gets thicker as they enter the stadium. The noise suddenly so big that you can feel it in your chest. A group of Hufflepuffs in the middle of the stands have started to chant. Hufflepuffs are just and loyal, unafraid of any toil, but don't cross yellow and black, we will always get you back, which quickly devolves into the simpler refrain of yellow and black, on the attack, yellow and black, on the attack. James smiles. He loves this. He thought his heart was going to explode the first time he stepped onto the Hogwarts Quidditch pitch. The Potters have a sprawling backyard and some play hoops set up, but it's nothing like this. He never gets less excited no matter how many games he watches. Already he can feel his skin buzzing with anticipation. The group of them pushed their way through the throngs of other students, looking for a group of seats together, which wouldn't have been a problem, James thinks bitterly, if his friends could walk in a straight bloody line. In the end, Peter and Abbott find seats together so they can continue the great chocolate debate of 75, and Dorcas and Marlene break off to sit with Lily and Alice. James very determinedly does not look at Evans. These seats aren't bad, Sirius says as they finally settle, far closer to the ground than James would like. He only grumbles in response. Oh, don't sulk. I mean, he's not wrong. Mary leans over the railing, peering at the grass below. These seats are rubbish. Thank you, MacDonald, James says, feeling deeply validated. Remus is the only one sitting, textbook already open on his lap. It physically pains James to see it. I'm going to wear you down one of these days, you know, he says, nudging at him playfully. Remus smiles without looking up. Sure you will, James. James snorts, turning back to the pitch. It's late afternoon, slightly overcast in that way the weather always seems to be in the fall. Somehow it makes all the colors more saturated, the greens and yellows. James starts drumming his fingers against the railing, bouncing on the balls of his feet, impatient for the game to start. I'm telling you, Sirius says, leaning in next to him. Hufflepuff has this one in the bag. Morrow is the best seeker at this school. Better not let Marlene hear you say that, Mary says in a sing-song voice. It's not all about the snitch, James argues, because it isn't. Everyone always thinks about that 150 points, but Quidditch is so much more than that. The best teams have deep talent. All the positions, all the moving parts, they matter. He wishes more people understood that, which is what he should say, what he normally would say, and then Sirius would roll his eyes and tease him about being a dork, and they would all move on. Unfortunately, for reasons James can't comprehend, what comes out of his mouth is, besides, you're underestimating Regulus. He feels more than he sees Sirius stiffen. The comment even catches Remus's attention, causing him to look up from his reading. Am I? There's something far too careful about Sirius's voice, too controlled. James grimaces. Fuck. Sorry, mate, I didn't think, just Quidditch brain, I wasn't, but Sirius cuts him off with a wave of his hand. It's fine, you're right, he's not bad, Reg. There's still an edge of bitterness to his tone that doesn't feel right. Helps that he has the newest broom model as well. Hard for Morrow to compete with that on his 3-year-old clean sweep. James has to bite down on his tongue to keep from telling Sirius that he doesn't think that that's, strictly speaking, entirely fair, even if part of him knows that Sirius has a point. Yeah, is all he ends up saying. James feels himself let out a sigh of relief when Madame Hooch steps onto the pitch, distracting them from the newly uncomfortable silence that settled around them. The announcer calls out the names of the Hufflepuff players as they file out, waving to the crowd and inspiring a new round of yellow and black, on the attack. James isn't really thinking about how watching Regulus play might be different now that he knows him. Their conversations in the astronomy tower are so disconnected from everything else that James hasn't really tried to make sense of them, to make them fit. Sure, he sees Regulus every once in a while in the Great Hall or the corridors between classes, but they're only glimpses. Nothing has changed, really. So he isn't expecting to feel anything when Regulus walks out onto the pitch in his tight, white Quidditch pants and green kit. Isn't expecting his stomach to drop into the soles of his shoes, beating at about a mile a minute. An exhale shooting out of him like he's just been punched in the gut. Sirius sends him a questioning look. James doesn't know what's happening. He doesn't know what the hell this feeling is. Nerves? Is he nervous? Nervous that Sirius might notice? Might figure it out? Might be mad? Well, okay, that one isn't a might. He knows that Sirius will be mad. He keeps meaning to tell him. He's been meaning to tell him since the first time with Snape. He doesn't know why he hasn't. Mostly, he imagines it's because he doesn't know what to say. But Regulus is mounting his broom and James's heart gives another lurch. You all right there? Sirius asks. Yep. James's voice is clipped, hands gripping the railing so tightly his knuckles have gone white. You look like you're going to be sick. Sirius sounds genuinely concerned. James is too, if he's being honest. Maybe it's something he ate. Maybe he is sick. Well, if you're going to be sick, make sure to do it on your other side, Mary says, without taking her eyes off the pitch. The snitch has been released, the player's in the air, and James is making a concerted effort not to look at anyone. Oi, not on my book, you better not, Remus says, but his eyes linger on James too. Prongs? You really do look a bit, I'm fine, he bites out, putting a smile on that he knows isn't exactly reassuring. Just headache. It's okay. Do you want to go back? Remus asks, a little too excited if James is being honest. I'm not missing the match. Sirius lets out a laugh from his other side, shaking his head as he mutters to himself. Obsessed. You're sure? Remus pushes, because I really wouldn't mind. I'm sure, Remus. Very, very sure. Remus lets out a disappointed sigh, returning, reluctantly, to his reading, and allowing James to continue to panic in peace. It's okay. This is okay. It's Quidditch. James loves Quidditch. He watches the keepers closest, since they're the ones he needs to know best, distracting himself from whatever's going on in him by breaking down their saves and misses, picking apart the gaps in their training. Focus on the game, he tells himself. Just focus on the game. Slowly, his breathing evens out, his grip on the railing relaxing. Fucking foul, Mary shouts as a Slytherin beater nearly knocks a Hufflepuff player he's chasing off her broom with his club. She'll get back up, James says confidently, watching as the girl, who's currently hanging onto her broom with one hand, starts to swing, gaining momentum and then beautifully throwing her leg back over the handle. Still a fucking foul, Mary mutters. You reckon Slughorn's paying Hooch off? Sirius asks, Hufflepuff scoring another goal despite the dirty play. What's that, 30-10? James asks, not taking his eyes off the game. And no, Baster's way too cheap for bribery. Sirius snorts. Touché. Maybe she does it for the Slug Club invite, Mary smirks. Sirius and James make nearly identical noises of disgust. Not fans? She asks innocently. I can't think of anything worse than a dinner party with that toad and a bunch of swats, Sirius says, shivering at the very thought. Well, fuck you very much, comes Remus's dry tone. Oh, come on, Moony, you know I didn't mean you. Sirius leans around James so he can shoot Remus a smile. Besides, you only went the once. Barely counts. Wasn't worth the heckling I got, Remus says flatly. Geez, you lot really are assholes, aren't you? Oi, James and Sirius say at the same time that Remus says. Yes. Though, Remus goes on, to be fair, it was a bloody insufferable dinner party. Aha! Sirius exclaims happily. See? Exactly. That's what I'm saying. And there's Slytherin with their second goal of the game, comes the announcer's magnified voice. Shit! James whips his head back to the game. I missed it. You two. He gestures between Remus and Sirius. No more bickering until the game is over. We're not... Shh! James waves his hand in Sirius's face, not daring to take his eyes off the game again. The Hufflepuff keeper is new, and James really wants to figure out his strategy before they play against each other. And that's when something small and green catches his attention. He'd been doing a good job of not looking at the Seekers, not particularly hard, considering they're usually on the fringes of the game anyway. But this... Regulus has done a straight dive for the ground, moving almost impossibly fast. For the third time this game, James feels something weird pull at his chest. Be careful, he thinks, before he can help it. Be careful, be careful, be careful. Has he seen the snitch? Mary demands, her upper body halfway over the railing. I don't see anything. James? He tears his eyes away from the speeding figure to look around him. No, he says slowly. No, I don't see it either. Morrow's going now, Sirius says, though James thinks he hears a new anxiety in his friend's voice as they watch his younger brother hurtle toward the earth. Be careful, be careful, be careful. Holy shit, Mary says all of a sudden. James is about to ask her what she's on about when Regulus abruptly pulls up. It's truly an incredible show of broomwork. Morrow doesn't stand a chance, realizing too late what's happening and trying desperately to pull himself out of the dive. He doesn't manage it. Not completely anyway, slowing down enough that he doesn't crash, but not enough that he can avoid the ground completely, rolling off his broom as he hits the grass. Merlin, booms the commentator's voice through the stadium. We just witnessed one of the best Wronski feints I've ever seen. James grins, heart beating out of control as the adrenaline buzzes under his skin. He watches Regulus flying in smooth circles above the game, the Slytherins going absolutely mental. Magic, James breathes, happy that Sirius is distracted by an excited Mary. And there's Hufflepuff with another goal, bringing the score 40-20. The announcer calls out, another goal James missed. Distracted again. Now that he's found Regulus, he can't seem to look anywhere else. Watching helplessly as Regulus coolly maneuvers through the game, tracking Morrow, waiting. Seekers require absolute control, self-restraint, the ability to sit back and observe. Regulus was practically born for this. Hufflepuff gets another 2 goals. Sirius elbows him. Told you, he says smugly. No, you said Morrow would get the snitch, which he hasn't. Sirius rolls his eyes. I said Hufflepuff would win. Because Morrow was going to catch the snitch. Geez, you're as anal as Marlene with her bets. James snorts. I'll take that as a compliment. The Hufflepuffs get another goal. The crowd is going wild, students holding up their wands and shooting off alternating yellow and black sparks. Damn, Mary says, sounding impressed. They're really kicking ass this game. James hums noncommittally, eyes bouncing around the field from player to player. What are they doing? All 3 of them turn to look at Remus, who shades his eyes with his hand as he stares up at the sky. After a moment, he seems to notice the rest of them staring at him. Yes? Moony, Sirius says slowly, sounding slightly awestruck. Are you watching the match? Remus rolls his eyes. I looked up for a second, but then I saw, well, that. He jabs his finger in the sky and they follow it to Regulus, currently floating next to the Hufflepuff Seeker. Talking? Are they having a date in the middle of a Quidditch match? Mary demands, half amused and half indignant. And then James stops, because he sees it. The tiny fleck of gold just by Morrow's ear. Regulus is apparently laying on the charm because Morrow is suddenly laughing, his entire attention on Regulus and completely oblivious to the snitch currently behind his head. James blinks, rubs his eyes, blinks again. But no, No, it's really happening. Regulus Black is going to flirt his way into winning the Quidditch match. The Hufflepuffs are in possession again, the announcer calls out, as oblivious as everyone else. Johnson speeding down the pitch. Ooh, nice bludger dodge, mate. The Badgers really are on fire today. Avery trying to make a save, and oh my god, he's got it. Black has caught the snitch. Where the hell did that come from? A horn blares out, signaling the end of the match. Morrow looking dazed and confused as Regulus glides down on the pitch, still holding the snitch in his hand. His team tackling him almost as soon as his feet touch the ground. All the Slytherins in the stands are on their feet, stamping and shouting and throwing green scarves around. How did that just happen? Sirius asks, dumbfounded. God, I feel bad for Morrow, Mary adds. No one's going to let him forget this. James means to respond, but he's working too hard on controlling his face, on not smiling as broadly and madly as he currently wants to, watching as Regulus is hoisted up on his teammates' shoulders. Even now, Regulus doesn't smile with his whole mouth, his happiness hiding in the corners, the golden snitch sparkling in his hand as he holds it up. It makes James breathless. James doesn't expect him to come, not after the first win of the season, but he goes up to the astronomy tower anyway, brings a book and the map. His whole body feels like it's still buzzing from the match, and he can't help running over the plays in his mind again and again. He gives up on homework eventually and starts scribbling down strategies to run by Frank at practice tomorrow. There's a cool breeze drifting in off the grounds. It's halfway through October now, and the weather's always crisp and sharp. Goosebumps pepper James's skin, but he doesn't mind it. His head snaps up when he hears the door open, blinking as Regulus stumbles in, still in his Quidditch kit. Oh. James blinks. Regulus's hair is mussed in a way it never is, his pale cheeks pink and eyes wide and glassy. Well, look who it is. James can't help but smile, placing his parchment and quill down beside him and turning to face Regulus head on. Here I am. His words come out overly articulated, like he's thinking hard about each one. Figured you'd be celebrating that win, James goes on when Regulus continues to stand there. But you came anyway? James shrugs, not sure he knows what to say to that, not sure he could explain it himself, even. You gonna sit down, or? Right, Regulus nods to himself. Right, yeah. He moves the same way he spoke, with too much thought, one foot placed cautiously in front of the other every step of the way until he's collapsing next to James on the ledge. He smells like Quidditch and fire whiskey. Good party? James asks, watching Regulus pull his legs up, crossing them on the ledge. It makes him look painfully sweet, especially when he runs a hand through his messy dark curls. Party? Oh, yeah, you know. James arches his brow. You really are sloshed, aren't you? Regulus tries and fails not to smile. I think I may have had an entire bottle of fire whiskey, he admits, a little shyly. Also, someone made jelly shots. And that's just too much. James throws his head back and laughs. Oh my god, I can't imagine you doing jelly shots. I'm not sure if I should be insulted by that or not, Regulus says, scrunching his face up. He's so much more expressive when he's drunk. James likes it. They're just not very dignified, are they? Tell me, did you raise your pinky finger when you did them? Oh, fuck off. Were they served on a silver platter? At that, Regulus's eyes go wide before quickly looking away. No, James practically gasps. No, they were not. Merlin, you absolute wankers. Hey, I had nothing to do with the placement of the refreshments, Regulus says indignantly. Oh no, you don't get to call jelly shots refreshments. I don't see why not. That's what they are, after all, Regulus retorts, putting a level of haughtiness behind his words that has James barely able to contain himself. There's nothing refreshing about jelly shots. Maybe you've just never had any very good ones. James throws his hands up in the air. I can't believe you, he says through a smile. How can you manage to be a snob about this? You pretentious little Enough, Regulus giggles. Actually giggles, as he ungracefully reaches forward to cover James's mouth. So much talking. The move causes Regulus to fall forward, the hand not currently covering James's mouth being used to hold him up in a crawl position. James feels his breath hitch. Regulus's eyes big and bright and so close. They freeze for a moment, not speaking, not moving. Regulus is drunk, but James has no idea what his excuse is. Eventually, Regulus drops his hand away from James's face, but he doesn't move back. You were brilliant today, James breathes. He doesn't know why, he just suddenly feels the need to tell him, needs him to know. Yeah? Regulus asks softly. The feint? It was beautiful, Reg. I mean, God, watching you, how did I never notice before? How did I never notice what a fucking star you are? Regulus snorts. Literally. Yeah, James says, without the sarcasm. Yeah, but you are, though. Something shifts in Regulus's expression that James doesn't understand. They're still so close, he can practically feel his breath. Guess you weren't looking, Regulus says eventually. It takes a moment for James to realize what he's saying. Maybe, he answers finally. But I'm looking now. In retrospect, he should have seen it coming. He didn't, but he should have. The first thought that he has when Regulus pushes forward, pressing their mouths together, half crawling into James's lap, is that he's so warm. His mouth, his hands, for a boy who walks around like he's made of stone, Regulus touches like the sun. After that, his brain sort of short-circuits. He can't think. He can't move. He knows he should have seen this coming, but he didn't. He didn't, and for some reason that keeps him frozen. Everything's overpowered by it. I didn't know this was what we were doing. I didn't know this was who I was. How could I not know? How could I not know? And then the heat is gone. James is shaking and dazed and staring up at Regulus, who has jumped so far back he's on his feet, face broken open in horror as he looks down at James. I'm sorry. It's a word wrapped in all sorts of pain. Fuck, I'm sorry. I didn't mean it. He's backing up toward the door, the pink flush gone from his cheeks. I swear, I didn't. He chokes and his voice hitches, and James wants to make it better, wants to fix this, wants Regulus to never look like that ever again. But he can't. He can't. How could he not know? He flinches when the door slams, and now that he's on his own, he realizes he isn't breathing right. Too fast and too short. He's seen Mooney like this before, like his body's forgotten how to breathe. James squeezes his eyes shut, trying to get himself under control. Breathe, he commands himself. Breathe, you idiot. In and out. In and out. Fuck. Something aches in his chest, and he doesn't know what it's from, but it hurts. Breathe. In and out. In and out. It's okay. This is okay. This can be okay. It's just a kiss. Except it isn't. It's Sirius's brother. It's Regulus Black. It's a boy. Breathe. In and out. In and out. A boy who touches like the sun. In and out. In and in. Notes. Yikes. That was intense. Have faith in James, though. He'll get there. Thanks, as always, for all the comments. You guys are so kind. I love reading them all. Chapter 5. He doesn't go back to the astronomy tower the next night, or the night after that. Neither does Regulus, James checks. That's how he spends his free time now, watching Regulus's name move around the map. It's absolutely and utterly pathetic, but that doesn't stop him. Hey, Earth to prongs! Sirius snaps his fingers impatiently in James's direction. James looks up from the fireplace to find his three friends staring at him. A beat passes. Sorry, what? Sirius huffs. Halloween party planning. Care to contribute? Not really. He sinks lower on his chair, tilting his head back to look at the ceiling. Can't we just do what we did last year? Sirius gasps, scandalized. Can't we just... Remus, are you hearing this? James is only vaguely paying attention. He knows that someone says something else, and then he hears the muffled noises of shuffling feet and closing books. Sirius doesn't start shouting again, though, so he considers it a win. Remus's face appears above him. Hey, Moons, he says wearily. Remus worries his bottom lip between his teeth, eyes running James over like he's a potion that's not boiling right. Let's go, shall we? He says eventually. James arches his brow. Sorry, I can't go anywhere right now. I'm in the middle of some very important work. Oh, yeah? James nods, expression serious. Someone's got to count all the cracks in the ceiling. Remus smiles, reaching out and grabbing hold of James's wrist. Come on, you lump. Let's go. If you're going to kidnap me, at least have the decency to tell me where we're going. James notices that Sirius has retreated to the other side of the common room with Mary. Pete nowhere to be seen. Remus clearly dismissed them. I'm not sure kidnappers are known for being particularly decent. Semantics, James mutters, allowing himself to be dragged through the portrait hole and into the hall and the other side. They walk in silence at first, James shoving his newly freed hands into his pockets and making a concerted effort not to look at anyone. The problem with being a generally sociable person is there's no efficient way to communicate to people that they need to stay the fuck away from you when you're having a bad day. You didn't bring the cloak, James finds himself saying eventually. I did not. Very astute of you to notice. James huffs. You going to be okay when we get detention for walking around after curfew? Remus taps the prefect badge on his chest, sending James a sly look. Ah, James says wisely, the perks of selling out. Remus only rolls his eyes, continuing to lead the way. The nice thing about Mooney, well, one of several, is that he's not a bad person to not talk to. He's not uncomfortable with silence. He can let things be in a way that James has never been very good at. It doesn't bother Remus that you're sad, not because he doesn't care, but because he understands that sometimes things can't be fixed. They just need to be felt. Snacks? James asks as they stroll up to the painting of the bowl of fruit. Remus tickling the pair with great dignity. Hot chocolate, Mooney corrects. James follows him through the portrait hole, smiling. He should have guessed. Hello, sirs. How can we be of help, sirs? What you be needing, young masters? At least a dozen house elves swarm them. James never gets used to it. The Potters only have one house elf, Mimi, and she isn't anything like the Hogwarts elves. For starters, she's always giving James shit. Oh, the little master has lost both his arms, I see. That is why his bed is still unmade. Or, Master James seems to have lost his sight at school, and that's why he cannot see the mess on his bedroom floor. 2 mugs of hot chocolate would be lovely if you wouldn't mind, Remus says, walking toward the nearest table. Is it okay if we stay for a bit? Not at all, sirs. Red way, sirs. Will you be wanting marshmallows, sirs? Remus turns to James, brow raised. Yeah, sure, thanks. He rubs the back of his neck uncomfortably as the little creatures scurry about. So we're staying then? James asks, sitting down beside Remus. Remus nods. Figured it might help. Help? At that moment, 2 giant mugs overflowing with mountains of already melting marshmallows appear in front of them. Remus makes a pleased humming noise as he wraps his fingers around the one closest to him. God, I love that smell, he says happily. James takes a hold of his own mug, pressing the warm porcelain between his hands and trying to ignore the dull ache that has been sitting in his chest for the past few days. You don't have to tell me what's wrong, Remus says eventually, causing James to look up. His friend is lowering his mug back down onto the table, eyes soft, but he can see the concern in them. But something is wrong, isn't it? James stares back helplessly. But nothing else comes out. 100 words lodged in his throat. He sighs, running a hand over his face before swallowing them all back down with great difficulty. I'm just tired, is the best he can come up with. It's not a lie. The nightmares have made a return, except now sometimes Regulus is the one who's screaming, and James never makes it on time. Remus looks at him skeptically. James, you love Halloween. That's because Halloween is amazing. Remus sends him a pointed look that James chooses to ignore, becoming suddenly much more interested in his hot chocolate. You were barely paying attention earlier, Remus pushes on. Usually I'd be trying to convince you in Sirius not to sneak a troll into the castle or charm the sofa cushions to growl at people. James snorts. Those are both excellent ideas, and you'd have come up with them if you hadn't been so busy sulking. James groans, dropping his head into his hands. Part of him wants to tell Remus, is desperate to tell Remus, but another part of him is terrified. It was so easy when he could keep Regulus up in that tower, away from everything and everyone else, away from the rest of his life, so he didn't have to think about what he was doing. Listen, like I said, you don't have to tell me, okay? Remus says, reaching across the table and tapping his shoulder lightly, letting James know that he's there. But the thing is, well, you're usually kind of an open book, and since not one of us has any idea what's going on with you, it's thrown us for a bit of a loop. He pauses. Especially Pat's. James scrubs at his face before sitting back and meeting Remus's gaze. He told you to talk to me? Remus smirks. Please. He wanted to talk to you himself, but since he has the emotional awareness of a toddler, I figured that would be completely useless. James snorts. Probably right. Remus takes another sip of his hot chocolate, waiting for James. He's never hidden anything from them before. He knows that they do, Sirius and Remus especially. He sees it sometimes in the tight way they hold their mouths or drop their eyes. He doesn't mind. He knows that it's harder for them, knows that part of his job, his role, is to be open, to be bright, to prove everything they think about the world is wrong, to prove that there is good, and sometimes that's enough. Sometimes the worst thing doesn't happen. He sighs. He starts, voice going out on him almost immediately. He clears his throat and tries again. I think I hurt someone. He swallows with difficulty. I think I hurt someone and I don't know, Fuck, Remus, I don't know how to fix it. The obvious questions, the who and the how, don't come, and James is grateful. Well, assuming that you didn't kill them, he waits for James to nod in the affirmative. Have you tried apologizing? James lets out a breath. I don't know how. I'm sorry is usually a good start. Yeah, James picks at the table. Yeah, it's just, I don't know. It's complicated. When a few minutes pass without Remus saying anything, James forces himself to look up. His friend is watching him thoughtfully, that little crease between his eyes he gets when he's thinking too hard. James braces himself for an onslaught of questions that he can't answer. Not right now. Maybe not ever. But he should have known better. This is Mooney, after all. Okay, the other boy says eventually. So just talk to them. James looks at him flatly and Remus laughs. Look, despite what Sirius Black would have you believe, torturing yourself doesn't solve anything. It sure as hell doesn't do anything for the person you hurt. His chest aches, thinking about Regulus's face, standing there after he'd kissed him, so fucking scared. Maybe I'm just a coward. Remus makes a disbelieving noise. James, you are without a doubt one of the bravest people I have ever met. He rolls his eyes, but Remus isn't done. I swear, the first years think you actually are Godric Gryffindor. They do not. James can't quite keep a straight face. Please, their eyes get so wide when you walk by, I worry they're going to fall out. But, he shrugs, a smile in the corner of his mouth. If they're going to idolize someone, there are worse people they could choose. That gets a proper laugh out of James, and Remus sips smugly at his hot chocolate before reaching across the table to squeeze his shoulder. Talk to them, okay? James nods slowly, playing with his mug for a minute before speaking again. Listen, speaking of apologies, I've been meaning to, His hand goes to the back of his neck. I didn't mean to make you feel uncomfortable the other day in the library. He sees Remus's posture tense as he carefully raises his mug to his lips, taking his time. I know. It's late, the candles burning low as one or two of the house elves move around them, preparing for tomorrow. I'm sorry, he says, when Remus continues to sit there silently. His friend lets out a breath. I got that. You don't need to be sorry, he says awkwardly, like his words are climbing over hurdles just to make it out of his mouth. You didn't do anything wrong, I just didn't want anyone to know. Those last words are almost a whisper. James nods. I know, and they won't. He doesn't try to convince him not to worry, not to take it so seriously. Not after the way it went last time. Thank you. Remus clears his throat and speaks more forcibly. Thank you for being so okay with it. With me. And for the first time, James has the smallest inkling that they may not be talking about the same thing. Sure, he says anyway. Of course. They finish their hot chocolates in silence. He has every intention of following Mooney's advice. Really, he does, except it turns out Regulus is almost constantly with other people. Between classes, between meals, at meals. He seems to specifically spend his time with Crouch and Rosier, who, personally, James thinks are a particularly gross pair of companions to attach yourself to. But that's none of his business. He spends a lot of his time trying to figure out how to get Regulus on his own, and comparably little time thinking about what he's actually going to say, what he wants. Those questions are hard and twist his stomach up, and if he thinks about them too long, he loses his nerve. So he doesn't. He ignores them. A time-tested method that has served him well in the past. In the meantime, he's back to being fully invested in party planning. We'll get the booze from Rosemerta this weekend when we go into Hogsmeade, he says, running down the to-do list in front of him. You mean Padfoot will get the booze. Peter doesn't quite manage to hide his bitterness. Sirius, who's been lying on his back, turns over at that, propping his head up on his hand and grinning. Jealous, Wormy? Peter blushes. I told you, I don't fancy her. James tries and fails to smother a snort, earning him a sharp glare from Peter. What? I'm sorry. He holds his hands up in surrender. But you do turn into a tomato every time her name is mentioned. Listen, Pete, I can get you in there. She's not a complicated woman. Serious. Really? Remus asks flatly. Don't be a creep. James sees something flicker across Sirius's face, like hurt, before he's able to mask it with a grin. Only trying to help. Right, okay. James presses forward. So booze is accounted for. Hagrid is supplying us with a shit ton of pumpkins, and I'm pretty sure I've figured out how to charm the ceiling to flash with lightning and not drench us in a torrential downpour. Is that why the sofas were so soggy the other day? Peter asks. No comment. Mooney, you've got music covered? Of course. Hey, Sirius sits up, running a hand nervously through his hair. Remus turns to him. I have these... My uncle, he sent me these records. I don't know if you'd want to take a look at them, or... He trails off, shrugging in a way that's oddly self-conscious. I don't know if they're really any good. I just thought if you were looking for something new... Remus blinks, holding Sirius's gaze. Yeah, I'd like that. Maybe you can show me later? Sirius nods, a little overeager. Yeah, cool, of course. James's eyes bounce between his two friends before going back to the list in front of him. Pete, you're on snack duty. I'm gonna clean Honeydukes the fuck out. Attaboy. James leans forward to punch him playfully in the arm. That just leaves... Oi, James! Marlene appears, leaning over the back of the sofa. Do you have the plays we worked on yesterday? I was hoping to run over them. Her eyes spot a parchment in James' hands and 3 other boys around him. Oh, sorry, am I interrupting a plotting session? We don't plot, Remus says indignantly. Well, I mean... Peter's head wobbles a little from side to side. We do plot a little. James rolls his eyes, tossing the parchment in his hands to the side. Yeah, Mar, just give me a sec. It's upstairs. Trying to get on Frank's good side? He hears Sirius ask her as he heads for the stairs. More like I'm trying to make sure I don't get shown up by your little brother. It's a blessing, really, that he's already around the corner at that point, because he isn't sure he manages to keep the grimace off his face. So really, it's Marlene's fault that the first thing he does when he gets up to his room is grab the map, tapping it open on his bed and scanning the familiar name. He's expecting Regulus to be in his room by now. It's 10:30, 11, maybe in the common room with Crouch and Rosier. Except he isn't. Not in either of those places. James feels his breath hitch slightly, eyes going to the astronomy tower. But he isn't there either. Frank and Alice are, though. James snorts. Good for them. He keeps looking, not sure where Regulus could be otherwise. He runs over every inch of the castle before he sees him. James taps the map closed, dropping to his knees to pull the invisibility cloak out from under his bed. He'll have to come up with some excuse to explain his disappearance to the others later. He has no idea what it'll be, but he doesn't bother trying to figure it out now. Marlene is still talking to Sirius when he gets back downstairs, Remus reading while Pete goes over the party list. James slips out the portrait hole as a fifth-year girl slips in. It's cold out. James didn't think to grab a jumper. He stashes the cloak in a spot he knows by the Whomping Willow before jogging down to the Quidditch pitch. He sees the snitch first, tiny and gold, blinking in the moonlight, and then, out of the dark, Regulus. James walks onto the field, watching Regulus let the ball go again, watching him wait for it to speed away before he starts doing laps around it. The absolute lunatic. James considers calling up, but decides against it. Instead, he sits down on the grass and waits. It's incredible, really, watching Regulus find his target even in the near pitch black. James only catches glimpses of him here and there. The rest of the time he blends in with the sky, disappearing into the stars. Fitting, James thinks. His stomach lurches a little when Regulus finally starts to come down, the calm that had washed over him while he'd been watching quickly falling away. Regulus doesn't see him at first, landing gracefully and pausing for a moment, looking at the snitch in his hands. James waits, wondering what it is that caught Remus's attention, and then, watching as the other boy carefully slips the ball into his pocket. I can't believe you're stealing a snitch, James says, stepping forward. Regulus jerks around, hand going right for his wand like it had the night James surprised him in the tower, always ready for an attack. Even in the dim light, James can see the surprise on Regulus's face before he quickly locks it down, expression becoming flat, unreadable. And he knows he should say something, now that they're here, knows that was the whole point of coming, but for a minute, all he can do is stare. Regulus is windswept, still breathing heavy from flying, his gray eyes filling with the moon. Regulus drops his broom, arms crossing over his chest, same blank expression on his face. Lovely night for some queer bashing, huh? James physically rears back at that, at the spite that manages to bleed into Regulus's voice despite his attempts to keep it level. What? Don't take too long, yeah? I have things to do. Oh, and if you could try not to get blood on my jumper, I'd appreciate it. I'm quite fond of this one. James is still reeling. What? Do you really think I would? But then something else hits him. Has someone done that to you? Regulus's mask slips ever so slightly, and even though he pulls it back, James still sees, still knows what it means, his hands curling into fists. Who? The word is practically a snarl. Regulus doesn't say anything, doesn't move. Who was it, Reg? He takes a step forward, and that seems to wake Regulus up. Oh, leave off it. He sounds irritated. I don't need you to defend my fucking honor, Potter. Which isn't nearly good enough, because the idea that they had done that to Regulus, So, Regulus's eyes run him up and down, sneering in a way that James hasn't seen in a while. Not here to mess me up, then. Just here to... what? Talk? He says the last word with a great deal of contempt. I'd rather the beating, if I'm being honest. James is still too busy trying to get his anger under control to come up with any kind of response to that. I'll save you the trouble. Regulus goes on, holding his hand out over his broom and summoning it into his palm without uttering a word. You're not gay. You didn't even touch me. You're welcome. Now, if you don't mind, I'm tired and I want to go to bed. The problem is, well, one of many, James thinks, is he's not much of a planner. Sure, pranks and parties he does all right with. Though, if he's honest, that's really Remus's influence. James has always been more of a gut-feeling kind of person. Act now, think later. So you see, he isn't thinking when he reaches out, frustrated with Regulus for walking away. Walking away again, for not giving him a second to breathe or think. Mostly, he just wants him to wait. But he doesn't have a plan. He isn't thinking. He's following his gut, so when Regulus stumbles back toward him, he doesn't know how his hands find their way to the other boy's face. Doesn't remember deciding to move forward, to press into him. Lips crashing together. This kiss is different. This time, James feels all of it. Every inch of his body humming as Regulus opens his mouth and lets him inside. All James can think is yes. Yes, this. Right here. Stay right here, where I can keep you safe. Regulus's nose is cold, but the rest of him is still so warm, and James can feel it pouring into him, filling his chest. There are universes in this kiss. It is big, gigantic. His hands slide into Regulus's hair. He smells like fall, like Quidditch. James barely registers it at first, the hand on his chest, flat and pushing. Not hard, but persistent, stubborn, eventually forcing a space between them that James doesn't want. Their breathing fills the quiet, their heads bowed close but no longer touching. Regulus's hand flat on his chest. No, Regulus says, finally. No? James instantly steps back. Regulus shakes his head, reaching down and picking up his broom by hand this time. I'm not doing this. He turns around and starts walking back toward the castle. What? James demands, following after. You started this! Regulus lets out a huff. I didn't, actually. You did. Forcing yourself uninvited and unwanted into my life. At least I was drunk. What the fuck is your excuse? James ignores that last question. If you didn't want me to be there, you would have gotten rid of me, and you know it. Still to Regulus's back. I tried. Bollocks. Merlin, keep your voice down, would you? I'd rather not have to deal with Filch catching us. Which, really, Regulus should have known was a mistake. Oh no, wouldn't want to get in trouble, spoil that spotless record. James purposefully raises his voice to a near shout. It would be terrible if someone were to look out here and see 2 students out of bed. Shut up! Regulus whips around, pulling James up short. Salazar, what is it you want, Potter? Which is an annoying and unfair question, James thinks, because quite clearly he has no idea. I want to talk. About? Regulus demands, thoroughly exasperated. James returns his tone. I don't know, Reg. This, what happened in the tower. Listen, No, Regulus says forcibly. No, see, this is exactly what I mean when I say I don't want to do this. James falters for a moment. That Regulus hadn't meant it. Hadn't meant to kiss him. Hadn't crossed James' mind before now, which he suddenly realizes might be a little self-absorbed, because Regulus had been drunk. Except the look on his face afterward had made James so sure. And then, just now, the kiss just now, that kiss had been meant, on both sides. He's certain. Almost. Mostly. Maybe. He drags a hand through his hair. Okay, he says finally. If you don't want... Sorry, I should have asked before. His heart is doing this weird thing where it stops every time he tries to get a word out. And for a second, Regulus seems to soften. Oh, honestly, bloody Gryffindors. That's not what I'm saying. James looks at him, not trusting himself to speak. Really, James, what do you want? What were you hoping to accomplish here? James sighs. I don't know. Brilliant. Listen, you ask a lot of questions for someone who doesn't give a lot of answers, Reg. Surprisingly, the younger boy seems to accept that, gray eyes intent on James. How do you think this goes, Potter? You think we're, what, gonna walk down the corridor holding hands? Snog in the library? James's chest aches. I don't know, sure, if that's what you want. Regulus stares back at him, blinking before a cold laugh bursts out of him. Jesus Christ. He turns away from James, but doesn't start walking again, broom forgotten on the ground as he brings his hands up to his face. They stand there for a minute, just like that, James entirely unsure of what to do with that reaction. You know what your problem is? Regulus says finally, turning back around. Nobody has really fucked you up yet, and they're going to, one day, but it's not going to be me. I don't want that job. Give it to someone else. Reg, but he's on a roll now. Have you even considered how people would react? How absolutely absurd everything I just suggested is? Have you ever thought about, I don't know, your parents? Which takes James by surprise because, no, he hasn't. Not at all. I know, they're perfect and lovely and selfless, but they're still purebloods, still from old families, and you're their only son. You think they'll be okay with you being a puff? Or, he laughs again, all twisted and sharp, or my brother, who may have disagreed with our parents on many things, but not this. Reg, James tries again, stepping closer, not entirely sure that Regulus is taking full breaths between his words, which is to say nothing of the fact that the boy you have chosen to fuck everyone off over is me. What's wrong with you? He doesn't think about it. Of course he doesn't. The words just coming out of him. Because he means them. But for some reason, those are the words that break through. The words that get Regulus to slow down for one bloody second. Not that they do anything to soften the hard look in his eyes. Don't act dumb, James, he says finally, sounding tired. It's beneath you. James shakes his head, taking a shaky breath. Look, you're right. I haven't thought about any of that. Regulus exhales, looking about ready to bolt again, so James talks fast. I thought, listen, you want to know what I want? I want to talk to you. Not just right now, but all the time. I miss you. I miss talking to you. I haven't been sleeping, James admits, and when Regulus looks at him questioningly, he explains, I have these nightmares, but you, I don't know, being around you, it made me feel okay again. It made me feel, safe. And you're right, my life has been easy, I know that, but I've seen enough to understand that good things are rare, and He looks at him, trying to lay all the thoughts he can't articulate bare in the space between them. You're good, Reg. The other boy just stares back at him, eyes wide, and James feels like his chest is going to burst open, his ribs aching in his skin. James, think about it, okay? James cuts him off, too afraid of how sad he sounds. Come to the astronomy tower tomorrow night. Regulus is impossibly still, a deer in the headlights, looking at James like he's never seen him before. James swallows with difficulty. He's too much. He knows he is. Always has been. Slowly, Regulus nods. Okay, James exhales, mostly speaking to himself. Okay, good. This time, when Regulus starts walking away, James doesn't try to stop him. The wind feels colder now, James shivering as he wraps his arms across his chest. He wonders if everything will feel colder now, after Regulus. The next day is a bit of a blur. James doesn't get much sleep, but that's par for the course at this point. He looks for Regulus at breakfast, but doesn't see him. Marlene gives him shit about not coming back with the plays, and Sirius demands a full explanation. Just needed some fresh air. Fresh air? Is that some kind of euphemism I'm not aware of? James just shrugs, doing his best not to meet Remus's knowing stare. Prongs. Hey, Sirius, don't you have to show me those records your uncle sent you? James sends out a silent thanks to the universe for Remus Bloody Lupin. He drags himself from class to class all day, retreating to his room when it's over and doing his best not to absolutely lose it. James, Peter comes up at one point. James is lying on his bed, tossing his snitch up and down, curtains drawn. You okay? Fine. Not feeling well. Oh, okay. Do you want something, or? I just want to sleep. Right. Yeah, okay. He listens as the door closes, then grabs the invisibility cloak and heads for the tower. He waits facing the door, elbows on his knees, hands clasped. He should have brought something to do, to distract him. Not that anything could have. Still, It'll be okay if Regulus doesn't come. It will. Better, actually. Probably. So, his knees bob up and down impatiently as he runs over every stupid thing he said the night before and every stupid thing he didn't say, but absolutely should have. He doesn't know how he's gotten himself here, or how something he didn't even know he wanted a week ago feels so important. He sighs, dropping his head into his hands and pulling at his hair. Fuck, he thinks. Fuck, he's not coming, is he? But that's okay, he reminds himself. Better, even. It's pathetic how quickly his head snaps up when he finally hears the door open. How instantly he fills with warmth at the sight of Regulus. Stiff and uncomfortable, but here. So very here. James feels himself still for the first time all day, because at least if he's here, they can deal with this. At least if he's here, then James isn't in this on his own. It's several moments before Regulus clears his throat, still standing at the door, eyeing James warily. No one can know. James blinks, trying to catch up. Okay, he says slowly. I mean it, Regulus pushes on. Not my brother, not Lupin, not Pettigrew. Whatever we do here, whatever this is, nobody knows. James nods. Okay, nobody knows. Regulus doesn't say anything else, just keeps standing across the tower, looking like he's ready to run. Reg, James says eventually, voice soft, a smile pulling at the corner of his mouth. Come here. It takes him a minute, so much going on behind those eyes, but eventually he moves forward, stiff and overly studied, like he was when he was drunk, thinking too much, trying too hard. He stops in front of James, gray eyes even more intense up close, and James honestly doesn't know where he gets the gall, but he reaches up and hooks his fingers through Regulus's belt loops, tugging him forward. He doesn't really think that Regulus will do it, doesn't think he'll follow, but he does. Sliding onto James's lap and James likes that. Aloof, proper Regulus in his lap. He runs his hands up his back, coming to hold his face, thumbs brushing his cheeks. And he sees it then, this close. Sees the fear and uncertainty and softness that Regulus is always trying so hard to hide. There you are, he says, almost a whisper, before pulling lightly on Regulus's hair, exposing his neck. He leans in and presses his mouth to the delicate skin, feeling Regulus's pulse race as a breath punches out of him. You're going to be insufferable, aren't you? Regulus says. James feels the words vibrate against his mouth. Yes, he says, between kisses. God, yes. Notes. Now if only Remus and Sirius could get together, am I right? As always, thanks so much for your comments. Always interested to know what you guys think. Chapter 6. Chapter Summary. It is a well-known fact that high school parties are always very chill and drama-free. Holy shit, James! Abbott practically crashes into him when they land back on the ground, slapping his back as Alice comes from behind and messes up his hair. I've never seen anyone fly like that, Abbott gushes. We're going to destroy Ravenclaw. You did good, kiddo, Alice smiles, the rest of the team landing around them. James just grins, big and toothy, a little breathless from the fly. Sirius rolls up beside him, knocking their shoulders together. I give you a 6 out of 10. Not enough showmanship for my taste. You're enough of a showman for the rest of us, Black, Frank says, pushing his goggles to the top of his head. Okay, team, I'm feeling good about that practice. McDonald, tighten up your passes. Abbott, you still need to work on not projecting your blocks. And Potter? Yes, sir, James says, bringing his hand up to his forehead in a mock salute. The older boy rolls his eyes. Fly like that on Saturday, and I'll take back everything bad I've ever said about you. Wait, what have you... Hit the showers, everybody. I expect you back on the pitch at 6 tomorrow morning. But what have you said? The team disperses, Frank walking away like James isn't very clearly speaking to him. Alice, he turns to the older girl pleadingly, but she only smiles, clicking her tongue. Sorry, James, my lips are sealed. Oh, really? Because that's not what Ow! Sirius cuts off as she smacks the back of his head on her way to the locker room. Merlin. Sirius just stares after her. I love that woman. James makes a juvenile snort, patting his friend on the back. She's out of your league, mate. Don't I know it? Oi, Black! They both turn toward Mary, who is currently leaning against the entrance to the field, crooking her finger in a come-hither motion. Think she means me? James asks, earning him an elbow to the side. I'll catch you later, yeah? Sirius jogs backward toward her, still facing James. You better not be late, you prat. We have a party to prepare for. Yes, Mom, he says with a cheeky grin. James rolls his eyes, smiling despite himself. Wanker, he whispers under his breath as he heads down toward the locker room. You seem in high spirits. James looks over, surprised to find Marlene falling into step with him. It was a good practice, he shrugs. Uh-huh. James arches his brow. Why do you look like you're plotting my death, McKinnon? I just feel like you've been awfully chipper the past few days. I'm a very upbeat person. It's one of my many excellent qualities. One might even say you're glowing. I do have great skin. Marlene laughs, punching him in the arm. I'm going to figure it out, you know. Figure it out? James asks. You mean the secret to my great skin? Sorry, but that's all genetics, baby. But Marlene will not be deterred, eyes wide and bright the way that they get when she spots the snitch. She's not in Gryffindor. I know that much. James lets out something between a sigh and a laugh, running a hand through his sweaty hair. Marlene, I told you, there's no girl. Sure there isn't. Marlene? James? You're a menace, you know that? He shakes his head. Pretty sure that's a compliment coming from you. He can't help but grin. It is. You know, Marlene leans into him, a strand of hair slipping out from behind her ear. You could also just tell me, seeing as we're mates. For some reason, that hits too close to home, his eyes going briefly back to the spot where his best friend is still talking to his girlfriend. He does want to tell them, his mates. It would help, he thinks, help it feel real. He still isn't entirely sure that he didn't make it all up. Because it's mad, him and Regulus. Brilliant, but mad. James swallows with difficulty. There's nothing to tell, Mar. She runs him over in a way that makes him feel exposed. If you say so. James loves parties. He knows for some people they're too much. The crowds, the noise. But he loves it. Every part of it. He loves the start, when everything's set up and he can't sit still, thrumming with adrenaline in the beginning of a buzz, wondering what kind of night it's going to be. He loves it when the first people arrive and everything is chill and quiet. He loves it in the middle, when you can barely move and you're a bit too drunk and everything's so sweaty that it's blurring together, like the world is painted in watercolors. He loves the end, when you can't tell if it's the exhaustion or the alcohol that's making you fuzzy. Sky slowly growing brighter. Oi, Pete, turn it up! Sirius shouts from where he squashed himself between James and Remus. It's just starting to transition into that middle period, the room packed and everyone tipsy. James tilts his condensation-covered bottle back into his mouth, feeling the satisfying burn as it runs down his throat. Oh, don't tell him to touch my record player, Remus says, straining his neck in an attempt to see between the crowd that separates him from his music. It'll be fine, Sirius waves his hand dismissively. Oh, will it? Remus asks bitterly. Do you not remember what happened last time? There's a pause before Sirius lets out a short bark of laughter. Oh, God, didn't he set it on fire? James snorts beer out of his nose. I forgot about that. Remus doesn't look particularly happy with either of them. Thank God Lily was there to put the bloody thing out. James still feels his heart hitch a little at the mention of her name, but it's not like it used to be. Ah, yes, Sirius says, taking a fairly substantial gulp of his drink. His eyes have started to go a bit hazy. Where is the fair lady of Gryffindor? James shrugs. Dunno. Haven't seen her in ages. He feels, as much as he sees, his two friends turn toward him. He stares back blankly. What? There's another beat of silence before Remus seems to shake himself awake. Nothing, just, well, usually you know. I know? Where Lily is, Sirius elaborates, looking mildly amused. Every minute of every day. I used to wonder if you'd put a tracking spell on her. James rolled his eyes. You're being dramatic. Well, Remus starts. Oh, okay, the both of you can fuck right off then. They giggle, Sirius reaching over and messing up James's hair. Oh, don't get all sulky on us. We're proud of you. Now, he surveys the crowd. We just have to find you a new girl. Something heavy fills the pit of James's stomach. He mutters non-committally, trying not to think about Regulus's eyes, or his hands, or Merlin, his mouth. Who do you fancy? James's hand tightens around his bottle. What? Sirius elbows him. Come on, Prongs, good selection here tonight. Remus makes an unimpressed noise beside them. Sirius ignores him, but he's clearly bothered by it. James wonders when that started happening. When did Sirius stop finding Remus's disapproval funny? Oh, Sirius snaps his fingers suddenly, which James can only assume is a bad sign. What about Marlene? She's been flirting with you loads recently. James tries not to laugh. Marlene is a mate, and no, she hasn't. You can snog a mate, Sirius says dismissively, making Remus stiffen beside him. Besides, you two looked very cozy this morning. James arches his brow. Cozy? Standing in the middle of the Quidditch pitch at 7 a.m. after practice? Sirius squints at him. You're very picky. Anyone ever tell you that? And then, before James can say another word, Sirius is poking Remus. Oi, Moony, you know where Marlene is? I am so not involved in this. Yeah, but can you see her, though? Remus looks at him as though he's completely lost it. You do realize we're sitting in the exact same spot, so whatever you can see, I can see. Sirius sighs as though Remus is being terribly thick, and James has to bite the inside of his cheek to keep from laughing. Yes, Sirius draws out his S. But you see, I'm drunk, and my eyesight is generally shit anyway. Meanwhile, you, Sirius leans into Remus, smiling dopily, have those beautiful big peepers to look out of. Remus's face goes beet red, eyes hopping from Sirius to James, looking slightly panicked. Thanks, I guess. Sirius, could you please support your own body weight? You're crushing me. Rolling his eyes, Sirius complies, pulling back and leaning against the wall behind them. Will you look, Remus? For me and for James, so I can get him laid? I don't need your help getting laid, James interrupts defensively, and I'm also not going to shag Marlene. But Sirius isn't looking at him. Instead, he's busy making eyes at Remus, batting his lashes like the coquette that he is. Please, Moony. There are a few tense moments of silence before Remus sighs. God, all right, sure, I'll look around. Oh, come on, Moony, James haggles as his friend gets to his feet so he can see more than a sea of legs. I can't believe you're actually doing this. Calm down, James, I'm just looking, Remus says as he starts scanning the room. I'm not going to help him with anything else. Fucking traitor. Sirius turns to him and sticks out his tongue. Listen, Pads, I don't... Oh. Remus's O has both James and Sirius looking up. What is it? Sirius sounds significantly more sober than he had a few minutes ago. Remus all but falls back to the ground. Nothing, he says, voice clipped as he downs his drink. Or, I don't know. Maybe it'll be something later when we're less drunk. Sirius, don't! Remus's hand shoots out and grabs hold of Sirius's wrist, tugging him back to the ground as he tries to stand. Damn, Moons, Sirius laughs, crashing into the floor. If James had thought Remus looked panicked before, it was nothing compared to now. I just don't think you're in the right frame of mind to handle this. Sirius arches his brow. Me? This has to do with me specifically? Remus bites his lower lip, not saying anything else, but also not letting go of Sirius's wrist. Okay, James groans as he stands up. I gotta see this. James, but Remus can't hold them both down at the same time, and he seems pretty reluctant to let Sirius go. James struggles to concentrate on the sea of faces in front of him, eyes bouncing from one person to the next, trying to figure out what the hell could have spooked Remus so bad. But nothing stands out. It's a normal party. There's... Holy shit, he hisses. Then, looking down and meeting Remus's wide eyes, holy shit. Yeah, Remus nods reluctantly. My thoughts exactly. Okay, you two. Sirius has started to try and shrug himself free of Remus's grip, which appears to be surprisingly strong. This has been cute and all, but I'd really love to know what the heck is going on. Well, James, Remus says nervously. Oh, come on, Moony, you're not going to be able to stop him from finding out about this. James looks back across the room to where Mary McDonald is currently snogging the living daylights out of a fourth year named Connor Davies. No one else seems to be panicking, so it can't be that bad. Sirius grumbles, still trying and failing to shake Remus off. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, it's not terrible. James, Remus says desperately. What? It's true. Prongs? Exasperated, Sirius collapses back against the wall, apparently giving up on escaping Remus's hold. James runs a hand over his sweaty face, looking down at his friend. Listen, mate, I'm really sorry. Remus opens his mouth to interrupt, but then seems to think better of it, and instead just tightens his grip on Sirius's arm. James reckons that's probably a good idea. The last thing they need is to have to find a place to bury Davy's body. Mary's kind of all over Connor at the moment. There's a moment in which the three of them freeze, staring at one another, the rest of the party fading into the background. And then Sirius starts to laugh. Remus shoots James a worried look. Sirius? Remus asks, tentatively. Are you okay? You too. He actually reaches up to wipe tears of mirth from his eyes, Merlin, you two kill me. James, sit down. Remus, you can let go. I'm not going to do anything. Jesus. A new wave of laughter rolls through him. Remus and James exchange another look before James sits down. Not going to lie, James says, hand rubbing the back of his neck. Thought you were going to take this a bit differently. Sirius takes a swig of his drink, still shaking his head. Nah, me and Mary are... Anyway, she mentioned today that she fancies Davies. I told her to go for it. He smirks. Looks like she did. This clears up absolutely nothing for James. I'm sorry. He pinches the bridge of his nose. So you two broke up? Sirius shrugs. Sure, I suppose. I mean, it was just convenience, really, the two of us. Convenience? Remus asks, looking just as confused as James feels. Sirius nods. She was around, I was around, so we just decided to be around together. It was fun, casual, no big feelings or anything. You know how it is. James thinks about Regulus on the Quidditch pitch in the tower, thinks about the way that he laughs when he can't hold it back any longer, or the way his eyes get bright when he's excited, or the way he tastes. No, he doesn't know how it is. He says it without thinking, which would have been embarrassing if Remus hadn't said it at nearly the exact same time. Sirius's brow raises as he looks between the two of them, before smiling and shaking his head. Bloody pair of puffs you two are. It's work to keep his face neutral, breath catching in his chest, which is stupid because he's heard it hundreds of times before. It's not like it matters. Still, he finds it suddenly hard to meet his friend's gaze. Nice one, Black, Remus says coldly, getting to his feet and pushing into the crowd. Oi, wait, Remus, come on, I was kidding around. It's too late, though. The room is full and loud, and Remus is lost in seconds. Sirius sighs, sinking a little ways down the wall. Why does it feel like everything I say just pisses him off? Sirius rolls his head to look at James, who prays his voice doesn't come out as strained as it feels. Probably because it does. Sirius huffs before finishing his drink. They sit without talking, the noise of the party swallowing them whole. It's hard to get the voice in James's head to shut up, the one that says that Sirius will never forgive him. And maybe that's not just because it's Regulus he's been sneaking around with. Maybe it's because... He shakes his head. No. He knows his best friend. Whatever Regulus says, James knows Sirius. I'm gonna get some more to drink, he announces suddenly, and when he doesn't get a response, he looks over to see that Sirius is currently preoccupied, glaring at Mooney, who's across the room now, talking to Dorcas. Do you think he fancies her? Sirius asks, words brittle. James blinks, looking from Sirius to Remus and back again, feeling as though he's missed something. I don't know. Might, I guess. Sirius doesn't respond, but the glaring intensifies. You know, James says as he stands, slightly unsteady on his feet, some smartass once told me torturing yourself doesn't help anybody. Sirius turns to him, blinking through the haze of alcohol. What? James nods toward Remus. You could just talk to him. Sirius plays with the cup in his hand, biting at his lower lip. Yeah, he says eventually. Yeah, maybe. James claps him on the shoulder. I'll be back. But he doesn't head over to the wide selection of drinks, courtesy of his allowance money and Sirius's flirting abilities. Instead, he takes the stairs two at a time, a risk in this current condition, stumbling his way to the bedroom. As soon as the door closes behind him, the world feels too quiet, a buzzing in James's ears he hadn't noticed before. He can feel the sweat on his skin now that he's not surrounded by people, pulling his glasses off and wiping away the condensation. Not that the world isn't still blurry when he puts them back on. He trips over Sirius's trainers on the way to the bedside table, grabbing the map and then promptly collapsing into his bed. There's no reason for Regulus to be anywhere but in his own bedroom, anywhere that James can reach him. But he checks anyway, suddenly feeling restless with the need to see him, to touch him. Because he can do that now, which is a bit mind-blowing if James is being honest. And terrifying. He bites back a smile at the sight of Regulus's name in the astronomy tower. Hey, he says softly, and then laughs because, geez, he must be pissed if he's talking to the bloody map. He lingers on the letters for too long before shaking himself awake again. He doesn't bother with the invisibility cloak. No one will notice him slipping out at this point in the night. He throws the map back into its drawer and tears out the door so fast he nearly tramples the person sitting at the stairs. Oh shit, he stumbles, grabbing hold of the wall, his balance not at its best. Sorry, I didn't realize anyone was up there, or I would have moved. James blinks. It's a bit dark in the stairwell, the warm light of the common room not quite reaching him. Of course, even in the shadows, that red hair is unmistakable. "Lily?" James asks, which is stupid because it's clearly Lily. "That's my name." Her voice is scratchy, like it's been worn out. Normally, he would assume it's from the booze, but then he sees her wipe at her face with the sleeve of her shirt. "Hey." James sinks onto the step beside her. She laughs dryly. What a cliche, right? Crying in the middle of a party over... well, anyway. James feels significantly out of his element, the bass of the music below them rumbling in his chest. "You okay?" He finds himself asking, another stupid question with another stupidly clear answer. She sighs, lifting her head to look at him properly for the first time, green eyes shining. Even in the moonlight, he can make out the faint freckles dotting her cheeks. "Probably not, but I don't think you're the right person to help." Ouch, James clutches at his heart. Right for the jugular, Evans. She rolls her eyes. I wasn't trying to be insulting, it's complicated, and Her eyes run him up and down in a way that does not feel flattering. "I can do complicated," James insists. Lily looks at him skeptically. "You don't strike me as a complicated guy, Potter." "Pfft," James huffs. "That's because you constantly underestimate me." Her smile is weak, but it's still a smile. She lets out another heavy breath, running both hands through her hair as she sits up a little straighter. "Oh, what the hell. Marlene and Mary are both too plastered to be of any use, and I can't find Alice anywhere." "She's probably boning Frank in his room." Lily shoots him a look, and James instantly raises his hands in surrender. "Sorry, no more sex jokes, promise." "Good. Besides, if they're boning anywhere, it's the prefect's washroom. Honestly, Potter." James lets out a surprised laugh. "My bad. You're absolutely right." "Try to do better next time." She shoots him a cheeky smile out of the corner of her mouth that twists something in James's chest. "So," he quickly pushes that feeling aside, "what is it that has you wasting an excellent party here on the stairs?" Her smile fades a little. "You sure you're going to be able to handle this?" "Lay it on me." It's Severus. It takes a Herculean level of self-control for James to swallow the wanker that usually comes out of him automatically at the mention of Snape's name. Lily eyes him warily. "I see," he says with difficulty. "Him in general, or did he do something specific?" Lily drops her gaze again, picking at her tights. I don't know." She chews on the inside of her cheek, struggling to explain, and James just waits, not trusting himself enough to speak unprompted. "Listen," she starts again, sounding incredibly tired. "I know you don't like him." "I do not," James concurs. "And to be honest, in the beginning, I think you were a bit of a dick about it." "Hey, and a snob." "Wow." James runs a hand through his hair, leaning back on the stairs to look at Lily properly. "Don't hold back." "Surely you must see that." She turns to almost fully around in her seat so that they can face one another. "He started most of the fights we had." Lily groans. "First of all, no he didn't. And second of all, it wasn't fair." James arches his brow. "Excuse me? What wasn't fair?" She waves her hands inarticulately in the air. "You two. It was never an even match." When James continues to stare at her unconvinced, she explains. "Yeah, okay. Sev can be rude, but you're James Potter." "That is my name," and he's glad to see her smile a little. "So nothing he said ever touched you?" "Not really." She keeps going. "But when you hit back... you made one comment about his hair and he had the whole school making fun of him for months. And that stupid name you call him." "Snivelus?" James provides. "Yes, exactly. Everyone calls him that now. Everyone. Sometimes even the professors." James does his best to hold back a snort. Lily's eyes are wide and bright, and James loves it. He'd forgotten, these past few months ignoring her, how much he loves it. Watching her go off, even when it's at him. Watching how fucking passionate she can be. "Nothing he did ever really stuck to you. Ever really impacted your life." "So what?" James asks. "Because people like me more, he gets to be a prick?" Lily sighs, running a hand over her face. I'm saying you were punching down. You're rich and handsome and popular, so yeah, he made some petty remarks, but you could have just left it alone because, if we're being honest, it didn't matter to you. But instead you decided to turn the whole school against him just for the fun of it. And that made you a dick." James sits with that for a moment, letting the noises of the party drift between them. Someone below is laughing, and James is pretty sure he can hear the distinct sound of glass shattering. Eventually, he pulls himself upright. "Okay," he says. Lily looks startled. "Okay?" Maybe I was being a dick sometimes, he shrugs. I didn't think about it like that. I just knew I could get him back, so I did. It never occurred to me to let it go. She looks at him curiously, green eyes narrowing. Who are you, and what have you done with James Potter? Hey, James laughs. I'm trying, okay? She holds his gaze for a moment longer before shaking her head. No, I know. Thank you. Thank you for, acknowledging that. No problem. He waits for her to keep going, and when she doesn't, he leans forward, elbows on knees, hands clasped. You said in the beginning. Huh? Lily looks up, mind coming back from wherever it had wandered off to. You started by saying that in the beginning I was just being a dick, which makes it sound like you think something has changed. Oh, well. He watches her try and fail to hide a grimace. Well, now Her voice breaks. She takes in a breath before looking back at him. I'm not an idiot, you know. James nods. I do know that, yeah. I see what he's doing and who he's hanging out with, and I hate it. There's a pause. Her mouth still open, like there's more she has to say, but she can't quite manage it. It's just, she struggles. It's hard to actually hate him. And though James personally finds Snape very easy to hate, he can understand what she's saying, at least in theory. He's your best mate, he says simply. Lily blinks, surprised. Yeah, and I know how that sounds, how trivial, but... Hey, James stops her. I get it. If anyone gets it, it's me. She nods slowly. I love him is the problem. She isn't meeting James's eye anymore, and he resists the urge to demand further explanation from her. I really do, but these days I just don't fucking like him, and I don't know how to handle that. Like tonight, everything was fine, and then... She swallows. And then I said something about the party, which of course set him off on a rant about you and how insufferable you are. It was all very boring and repetitive. But then he started going in on Remus, and I... He said what about Remus? James's voice is suddenly hard. Lily rolls her eyes. Oh, leave it. I went off on him already, put him in his bloody place, and he apologized, but the fact is that he said it at all. What did he say, Evans? She narrows her eyes at his tone. I'm not telling you, Potter, in case I didn't already make that abundantly clear. He's my mate, James practically growls. He's my mate too, actually. Not in the same way. Because honestly, the fact that Lily thinks that they can even compare their relationships is laughable to James. Besides, if you were really his mate, you'd stop hanging out with Severus fucking Snape. At that, her expression hardens. And if he hadn't been angry and drunk, James probably would have regretted it. But he doesn't. It's like you haven't listened to anything I've said. I listened, James said shortly. Here's the thing, Lily. Your mate is awful. He's awful to pretty much everyone except for you. He's not just rude or, what is it you said? Oh yeah, petty. He's a bloody bigot. And what I heard you say just now is that you know that. So Gryffindor the fuck up and walk away from him already. Because him apologizing to you isn't good enough anymore. It isn't fair. Not to Remus or to any of your other friends he's been attacking. I mean, fuck, Lily, it's not even fair to you. Lily's eyes are wide, the color unreal as she stares at him speechless. And suddenly James feels exhausted. Exhausted by this conversation and by Snape and by all the things that they aren't saying. Petty wasn't the right word for what Snape is, but neither was bigot. They have a name now. James sighs, running a hand through his hair. Sorry, he says, though he's not entirely sure what he's apologizing for. He's just desperate to get away from the noise and the heat and her. Her more than the rest of it. I gotta go. James, there was a time when Lily calling out to him, saying his first name, would have stopped him in his tracks. But it's not now. He's already down the stairs and he doesn't turn back. Reg is reading when James finally gets to him. He pauses at the door, just watching for a moment, feeling the fingers of Regulus's warm charm drifting over to him. Some of the anger from the conversation with Lily starts to fade, and when Regulus looks up, his gray eyes instantly finding James, he forgets about it altogether. Don't you have a party to be hosting? The younger boy asks, marking his page as he slides the book off his lap. James says noncommittally. They'll survive without me. Besides, I couldn't leave you up here waiting for me all night. Regulus rolls his eyes. I wasn't waiting for you. Sure you weren't. I wasn't. If that's what you need to tell yourself. James pushes off the wall, the world around him a little fuzzy. Regulus is wearing a dark blue jumper, which is a weird thing to notice except that usually he's in black. or green, but this feels so much more natural somehow. When James reaches him, he runs his fingers along the collar, feeling the soft cotton between his fingers. Regulus arches his brow. "Color looks good on you," James says. "Color? Not very specific." Regulus is unable to keep the amusement out of his voice. "No," James agrees. "Still true, though. I've only seen blue and green, but both have been aces, so I'm sure the rest look just as good." Regulus snorts. "You're drunk." "Very much, yes." His hand moves from the collar of Regulus's shirt up his neck to his jaw, James's thumb running along Regulus's lower lip. "James," he says, voice a little huskier, sending a chill along James's spine, his eyes intently on Regulus's mouth. "You're drunk." James hums again. He's learned a lot about Regulus recently, specifically about how he likes to be touched, which is slowly. He wants to see you, to know where you are, to know when you're coming. So James makes an effort to broadcast his movements at all times. He doesn't mind. He even likes it, how intentional it all is. Slowly, he lowers himself to his knees, Regulus opening his thighs for him almost automatically so that James can press forward, hands still on Reg's face. "James," he says again, but whatever else was going to come out of his mouth is swallowed by James's lips. He's a tad sloppier than usual, his whole body aching at the contact. "This is all we're doing," Regulus says against him. James makes a noise of protest and quickly finds Regulus's hands on his shoulders, pushing him back. "I mean it, James. This is it." James huffs. "Yeah, okay. I'm not even that drunk," he mutters, feeling Regulus's smile as they come together again. "It took you 10 minutes to figure out how to open the door." James laughs into his mouth, pulling back slightly. "Bold of you to assume I can open a door sober." It's Regulus's turn to laugh, and James eats it up, tongue lapping into his mouth, hungry for every piece. For all his whining, he's more than happy with this, with the warmth of Regulus's hands as they skate over his back, his chest, pulling at the hem of his shirt in search of skin. Regulus tastes like something sweet, his legs tightening around James like he's afraid he's going to move, as if he would. Regulus pulls back from James's mouth and kisses along his jaw, down his neck, meeting his collarbone. It all makes James groan. "You're gorgeous. You know that?" he says when Regulus's face is once again level with his. For a second, their foreheads rest against one another. "You're drunk." "Yeah." James's hand moves to the back of Regulus's neck, holding it carefully. "But it'd still be true if I was sober." This time, when Regulus kisses him, he sinks his teeth in, ripping a sound out of James he's never heard himself make before. "God, Reg." He wants to be closer. Somehow, impossibly, he wants to feel every inch of him, wants to... "I knew it!" It takes a second for James's intoxicated and very preoccupied brain to fully comprehend that voice belongs neither to himself nor Regulus. It takes Regulus significantly less time, his mouth ripping away from James, his whole body going still in a way that's incredibly disconcerting. Oh, fuck," the voice says again. "Marlene?" James, who is still on his knees between Regulus's legs, turns toward the door to find a white-faced Marlene standing there, hands clasped to her mouth, head shaking back and forth. "Oh," James thinks. "Oh, this is not, ideal." Regulus, apparently no longer frozen, is suddenly on his feet, stepping around James with his wand raised and pointed at Marlene's chest. "If you breathe a fucking word about this, I will..." "Reg." James scrambles to his feet, attempting to get between them. "Hurt you in ways you cannot possibly imagine. Do you understand?" "Oi, Jesus!" James steps in front of Marlene's hands raised as he meets Regulus's stone-cold stare. Gone is the soft boy he'd been wrapped up in only seconds earlier, his mouth still red from James's lips, hair still mussed from his hand. The person in front of him is all sharp edges. "Reg, put that away." James swats at his wand, but Regulus quickly steps out of his reach. There's something feral about Regulus, like a wild animal who's been backed into a corner. "Regulus," James repeats louder, "put the wand down. Now." For a second, he thinks Regulus might actually curse him, which, well, James doesn't know what he'd do with that, but after a few more intense moments of staring, Regulus lowers his wand. James exhales, turning to Marlene, who still looks thoroughly freaked out. "Mar," James nods toward the door. "Let's talk, yeah?" She nods, understanding immediately and moving toward the door. "I'll be back," James says to Regulus, and and when he doesn't get a response, he pauses, halfway through the door. Reg? He waits until gray eyes meet his. I'm coming back, okay? Just wait here, yeah? Please? It's small and stiff, but eventually, Regulus nods, James's chest aching at the blank look at his face. James. He's barely taken 2 steps into the stairwell before Marlene is on him, hands grabbing hold of both of his arms. James, I'm so sorry. That was so stupid of me. I didn't know what I was thinking. I've been drinking, and then I saw you sneak off, and my stupid brain thought it would be funny. I didn't think. Whoa, okay, I'm gonna need you to breathe, all right? He ducks his head so he can meet her eyes. She nods, taking in a deep breath and letting it go shakily. Shit. She looks at James again. James, that was Regulus Black. Yeah. James's chest gives a small squeeze at the look on her face, her eyes the size of dinner plates. Does Sirius know? The ache grows. No. Shit. She shakes her head again. Shit, James, he pulled his wand on me. Yeah, I know. He does that. She lets out an outraged noise. He threatens you? James feels a small swelling of warmth at the sudden protectiveness in her eyes. No, that's not what I meant. He's jumpy. Marlene looks like she doesn't quite believe him. God, James, I did not see this coming when I guessed you were wooing someone. James wrinkles his nose. Still not a fan of the term wooing. And believe me, the feeling is mutual. It just sort of happened. She lets out a low whistle. Yeah. Listen, Mar, you can't tell anyone about this, okay? Though James wouldn't have thought it possible, her eyes get bigger. No, I won't. Of course I won't. Thanks, I appreciate it. He offers her a weak smile before nodding over his shoulder. I should, go make sure he's okay. She nods slowly, reluctantly letting go of him. Right, yeah, of course. She takes a few steps down the stairs before stopping. I really am sorry, James. But he waves her apology away. It's fine. I've done stupider things. He waits till she's out of sight before he opens the door again. Regulus is standing on the ledge, back to the door, arms stiff at his sides. The sight makes something in James' stomach twist. They stay like that for too long, James not knowing what to say. Well, Regulus asks coldly, without turning around. She's not going to tell anyone, Regulus scoffs. And you know that how? She said so. That doesn't mean anything, James. It sounds like he's forcing the words between his teeth. She's my friend. That doesn't mean anything either. It does to me, James says simply. It does to her too, Reg. Look at me. He steps closer, but not too close. He wants to reach out, but he doesn't. It takes a while, but eventually Regulus faces him. It's hard to see the mask so firmly back in place, the walls so thick and high around him that James doesn't know how he's going to get back over them. I'm not going to let anything happen to you, okay? He doesn't know where the words come from exactly, only that he wants to take some of the fear out of Regulus's eyes. Don't make promises you can't keep, James. I won't. Another moment passes before Regulus sighs, his shoulders sagging as he brings his hands up to scrub his face. You really believe that, don't you? Just like you believe you can trust McKinnon? I do, and I can, James says simply, hoping somehow he'll be able to get Regulus to see that he isn't alone, that everyone isn't trying to punish him. Regulus drops his hands away from his face. I'm tired, is all he says. James nods. Okay. Regulus grabs his book from the ledge, very determinedly not looking at James as he walks toward the door. Regulus? James calls to him before he can disappear, relieved when the younger boy actually stops. I'll see you tomorrow, yeah? Trying to keep the fear out of his voice. Eventually, Regulus's eyes seem to find their way back to him. Yeah. He sounds worn, though. You'll see me tomorrow. And somehow, that manages to take the edge off the sound of the door slamming closed. Notes. Hello, lovelies. This chapter is one of those where when I wrote it, I was like, wow, amazing, chef's kiss. And then every time I've read it since, I've liked it less and less. So hopefully it still turned out okay. Thank you for the comments. They make my day.